This podcast is sponsored by Nitra Word of Freeman J. Burns Realty. Are you looking to buy or sell a home or investment property in Charlotte, North Carolina, or any of the surrounding cities? If so, contact me. You can reach me by email at nitra@freemanjburns.com. That's Nitra, Nitra, at Freeman, the letter J, Burns.com. At Burns Realty, we are passionate about providing a world-class experience and building relationships that will last long after your real estate transaction.
We have to face the truth and then go to work to turn things around. And make no mistake about it, we can turn them around.
Welcome to the 7th episode of Live.Laugh Word. I am Chris Word.
And I'm Nitra Word.
And we are doing another episode from South Africa. We're sitting in an Airbnb home in Cape Town, South Africa.
And it is gorgeous.
It is. We're going to put pictures up on our Instagram. Follow us at live.laugh.word on Instagram. But we're here at Hout Bay. Is that correct?
Yep.
Hout Bay in Cape Town, overlooking the mountains and the water, and it's amazing. But before we get into our next topic, let's bring back our friends Terrell and Lola Turner. Say hello.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Hello, everyone.
Just in case they didn't listen to the last episode, let them know where you're from.
We're currently in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Currently, that sounds temporary.
We're in Cincinnati, Ohio, taking it one day at a time and, enjoying building our marriage and working on our 2017 goals. So.
I understand. Shout out to the Turners in Cincinnati.
Yes.
So today we're going to talk about marriage and what they didn't tell you. Interesting topic. So what are some things that you all were surprised by? Let's just shoot a few off the top of the head.
I want to caveat by saying it's not necessarily things that people did not tell you. People would tell you, but it would kind of be in passing. No one went into detail. I guess that would be the better thing to say. Yeah. Things that no one went into detail about marriage and what to expect.
Okay. So I'm going to shoot out the first one that we have listed here. Things that people didn't say about marriage. Number 1, there is an intense adjustment period.
Intense adjustment period when you first get together, yes.
Yes. So what do we mean by that?
Well, I'll go off and say when couples, especially for couples who do not live together, when you go from being solo, independent, and now you have to share your space, time, and everything with someone else, there's definitely a period of adjustment that you as a unit have to go through.
Yes.
Whether it's I don't leave dirty dishes in the sink, and someone else could care less if there are dirty dishes in the sink.
Yes.
Lola, what are some of your things in the living together adjustment period?
Just being used to everybody working at their own pace. So, I don't like, dirty socks on the on the bedroom floor, and or just clothes, period, on the floor. So, that's what Terrell's used to doing. So not to throw him under the bus, but, and for example, I know one big thing for me, there was an adjustment when we first lived together after we got married was when I would brush my teeth, there'd be water on the sink. And that was such a huge pet peeve for Terrell. And, a lot of times we don't think about those things because we're like, it's not really a big deal. But when you get married and you're in that space with each other all the time, it becomes so magnified to where things that you wouldn't have even bothered you when you were dating and you were over there now just seem to be, annoying.
Yes.
So
I would make just a caveat to that is to say the difference between marriage and dating. I mean, there are a lot, but one of them is that when you're dating and you see that water on the sink, it's kind of like, oh, okay, whatever.
That's their house.
I'm here for the weekend, or I'm here for that one moment that we're brushing our teeth, or I'm in the bathroom. But when you're married and you wake up every morning and you see that same water on that same or my sink every morning.
I have an issue now.
Then you get to a point where you're like, this has to stop. It's no longer just that I can't ignore this any longer. Let's sit down. Let's talk about this. Right. So that's when it becomes, it's like an itch that continues to grow. Then it gets to a point where it's a full-blown rash and you just have to let it out. But it's something that small. But Terrell, anything that you notice? This is your time here.
I will say, during the dating, you find a lot of things that you have in common and a lot of things that you share, and there are different things you're assessing, like, oh, I have a preference for this, and you're like, oh, this person does that. Like, for example, when it comes down to cleaning, like whenever I would go visit Lola, after she was finished cooking, you know, the kitchen would be clean. So when I come over, I would see the end product of it. But the part that was an adjustment was the timing of when it happens. Because for me, where it's like I may have a preference of, you know what, not leaving any dishes in the sink overnight. Well, if I'm only seeing her once a day, when I come in the middle of the day, you know, she may have gotten up that morning to clean the dishes or whatever, whereas I have the preference of I clean it at night. So we're doing the same thing. Our preference is the same. It's just when we decide to execute becomes part of the friction there, to where that one, I don't think anyone ever mentioned or discussed that at all, as far as you may like the same thing or you may want to achieve the same thing. It's just your timing may be different. And I think that has been a very fun and interesting transition.
And I'll also go ahead and say, sometimes it's like that whole thing of you're meeting the representative. Like when you're dating and you know, like we have a date tonight and he's coming over, everything's spotless. The house is clean, things are put up, everything's like nice and organized. I mean, you may even put cookies in the oven so the house smells all sweet, you know, when he walks through the door. But on an everyday basis, you get together, he realizes, you know, that's not actually, you know, the reality of what happens on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
And that adjustment is hard to deal with on both sides.
Yes, and to support both what Terrell said and what you said, and with all due respect, and I'm not trying to disrespect you at all, but the representative being, when you go on a date, you see her glammed up. It's like, wow, the heels, everything.
The hair is done, the makeup.
Then when you get married, you be like, man,
it's time to go to bed. I have to wrap my hair.
Wrap
the
your
makeup
hair,
has to
and
come
then
off.
the sexy clothes come off, but then the big moo comes on, and you're like, I didn't even know you had one of these. But that's one of those type of adjustment periods. And now to say this, you do still love your spouse and love your mate, but it's one of those, okay.
This is what I'm working with.
This is what I'm working with. Now, I wasn't ready for this, but this is what I'm working with. So, anything else on this topic? I feel like we can go deeper, but we're trying to stay surface.
I know we're also trying to stay on time, but I will add something to kind of what Nitra said, or kind of the opposite side of it. I remember when Terrell and I went on our first date. Terrell and I have a 6-year difference, so my fashion sense is quite different from, I guess, what Terrell's age group fashion sense.
Wait a minute, I'm
not to take a shot. Not to take a shot.
Wait
Terrell's age group.
No, shout out to the 80s babies.
But when we first met, I had just turned 21, and I don't think it has anything to do with it. I think I just tend to have a more relaxed fashion sense sometimes. But I was wearing sneakers. I think I had sweatpants on and a sweatshirt. That was my outfit.
On the first
on
date.
our first date. And that was my outfit. Actually, I don't think it was sweatpants. I think it was like, one of those leggings, but still. And then I had like and then I had like, I had a sweatshirt and I had my hair up in a ponytail, and I think he was in downtown Chicago. He had basically rushed, got home, taken a shower, dressed up all nice, had jeans and like a very nicely ironed shirt.
Right.
And he shows up to the movies, and I mean, I was on the beach that day, so I really didn't feel like I needed to dress up. So I pull up, I have my hair up, I think I look cute. And, I see him and I'm like, oh, you look really dressed up. I mean, I didn't really think, this was how the date was supposed to be. And so I kind of feel like for me, and Terrell, you can disagree with this if you don't have the same perception. I feel like I've always been very relaxed. Because I'm like, I want you to see me how I normally am. I'm not going to do too much other than, maybe clean the kitchen before you get there. But it's just my fashion sense and putting on makeup and not putting on makeup is just like, hey, this is how I am on a regular basis. To where like sometimes Terrell's made comments about, okay, you gonna change the outfit before we go out, things like that. So I think there's also that side to where sometimes, when you get married, you're seen as a unit, and a lot of times how you look reflects your partner as well, to where you also then have that kind of pressure of, okay, if I'm going out today and I'm wearing flip-flops and looking a hot mess, that's a representation of Terrell as well. So maybe I need to step it up a little bit. So I think there's also that.
I really agree with what you just said, and I think that's something we should add into this topic that we have not it's not currently on the list. But the fact that when you are married, you are seen as a unit, and that comes up to a lot of discussions and sometimes arguments when we are getting ready to go out, or say I'm going to an event. It's like, the first time you say, no, I don't want to go, you go. The second time, cool. By the third time, it's like, well, these people are going to think I don't have a husband. Like, at some point, we need to go out together. We need to be seen together. Right. And that was also a very big adjustment for Chris and I to work through and go through, because Chris likes to attend a lot of events. And sometimes I just want to relax. Like, you've booked up my schedule and you didn't even ask me about booking up my schedule. It's kind of like I didn't realize we had 10 things to do today. I had my 3 things I planned to do, and then I was going to relax, Right. And so that was definitely adjustment, us syncing our calendars together.
Yes.
I didn't think, it sounds so crazy, but we got to that point where it's like, okay, if you're going to sign me up for an event, can you put it on my calendar so I know, and with a day before alarm and a 2-hour before alarm, so that I can know that, okay, this is something I need to attend.
Right. And you want your spouse to go along with you to those events. So it's not to say, oh, I do want to go to this happy hour or this meet and greet or whatever it is, but I want my spouse to go with me because, number one, I want her to experience it as well. I think it'd be something great or positive or whatever. And number two, it gives us time out of the house to do something. But then you don't want your spouse to be angry or upset or even going with a grudge, because then it doesn't carry that same aura or experience. Now it's that one person who's going around shaking hands and the other one that's just sitting in the corner saying, why am I here? When is this going to be over? And that's never fair to anyone. But that leads us into our next topic that we have down, the pressure of being in a marriage. The pressure of a husband and the pressure of a wife, and that pressure as the unit. So I'll start by saying that I was not told about the pressure of being a husband. I planned to be. You hear about being the head of household, you hear about taking the lead, but in assuming that role, it all falls down on you. Financially, emotionally, everything comes down on you. And I'll bring up this example. Last year when our daughter Olivia passed, or even when she was born and we were going through that difficult time in our lives, Nitra was very emotional and very emotional, but she exhibited. For me, I had to be there for her first, and then I had to carry out or illustrate my emotions second. And I realized that I can't illustrate my emotions in front of her, because then it'll be twice as hard for her. So I felt a lot of pressure in that moment. Like, even though I wanted to break down, I want to curl up in a ball and say, why me? Why is this happening? Take this away, or whatever the situation is or was at the time. I had to stand there and be strong and keep all of that in while I was being the rock for my family. And at what point can I let those emotions out? Because I'll always be the rock for my family.
And I want to say, it's not the fact that you could not let those emotions out, but I would be honest in saying that what I was going through was really rough, and I was already breaking down. I felt like if Chris would have broke down as well, who would have been there to hold us up as a family? If I'm slightly depressed about, losing my child and in the bed every day, if Chris is also in the bed every day and depressed, then what's going to happen to our family, Right. So I agree, and I hear what you're saying as a man, that I guess something I never really truly considered, but you do have a lot of pressure, because I felt like I could have just checked out, but Chris was I depended on you to hold everything together.
Right. I appreciate that.
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Here we go. Therapy. We having therapy right now. What about you all? What about any pressures that surprised you or caught you off guard, or anything in that regard? And we can even go, you said what we said, the pressure of having to always go with your spouse to events because you're the pressure of being a couple. And
I would say for me, one of the things that I did not fully comprehend would have been, because my wife is African. She's half Nigerian, half Kenyan, born in Africa. The earlier years of her life, grew up in Africa, so she is African through and through. Now, she's lived in other countries, but as far as the base of, her culture and how her family functions is through and through, it is African. So one of the things that I did not fully understand were the expectations that came with being part of an African family, to where, because her culture is different, and I am born and raised in America, so there were things that as a husband, when I would go out to events with her where it was a predominantly African environment, there were things that people were saying, oh, a husband should do this, and I'm like, I'm not African. I didn't know that was the expectation on me. Right. And so that piece to me was something where I began to start to feel this pressure of, okay, I don't want to make her look like she has completely left or disregarded her heritage by being a bad, I guess, representation of a husband in her, I guess, to the people of her culture. Mm-hmm. So I think that there was a little bit of pressure there to learn her culture and to become part of her culture, but yet still be myself at the same time. I think that one was a lot of pressure, and not really having, because like I said, I'm born and raised American, so I didn't really have an outlet for someone to kind of teach me, hey, what are these little things that you do in your culture? So it's almost like, and I didn't feel like I could come to Lola and explain, hey, I don't know what the expectation, because she wasn't raised to be a husband, so she didn't know either. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that for me, that was a big pressure point, because it's like, you have to be a husband, you have to perform, and I mean, I guess for lack of a better word, perform. Mm-hmm. As a good husband, and you don't want to make her look bad to, right. Whether it's her family or her friends, right. And then you don't want to let her down as well.
Exactly, the let down. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would even say that here in Cape Town. So here we go. We're on basically a couples international trip, and in some ways we are all very good friends, but I feel like if Terrell gets up and washes dishes, then Chris better get up and take a trash bag out or something, because I know I'm going to get that look like, how dare you leave him to do that by himself? And so it's even pressure in that regard. It's like, no, that man made his decision. He wanted to wash the dishes. But for me, it's like, nah, well, he made a decision for both of us. So now it's time for the men to do some work.
I agree.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, on the same page. No, but just to add to what Terrell said, I think in general, I think for me the biggest pressure point was learning how to balance the whole aspect and the whole idea for us of the husband being the head of the household, but also being a team player to your husband. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of kind of the African background and culture traditionally is, and this is kind of what I've heard, like some, from some family friends, like the older kind of family friends of, well, as a wife, you have to cook for your husband every day. And as a wife, these are certain things that you have to do. So I remember when we first got married, I think for the first, this only lasted a week, but for the first week, I'd be like, I feel bad because I'm like, I'm not waking up, and we were in the process of moving to Ohio. And I'm just like, I feel like I should be packing his lunch every day. And, I should be cooking for him. There should be dinner ready when, when he comes home. And I just kind of felt like, and I talked to my mom about that, I'm like, I just feel like I'm not being a good wife. I feel like there's all these things that, all these aunties and everybody has talked to me about doing as a wife, and I just feel like I'm missing the mark. And, one of the things she told me is, you have to make your marriage what works for you guys. Right. And, it's kind of just the pressure in the beginning to be like, I trust him as the head of the household, but at the same time, if I'm not confident in the role that I play and the value that I add to the team, then it's going to sink us as a whole. I need to be confident in what I bring to the table, and I need to be confident in the fact that we are a team and we work well together. And being submissive or just letting him lead doesn't make me any less, and it doesn't make me any inferior. And just being confident in what I have to bring to the table. I think that was a huge struggle for me because of the cultural background that I have, and kind of the ideals, quote unquote, ideals of what a woman should be. And, just making our marriage work for us. And, when a lot of people, probably when the very traditional aunties come over to visit and, see Terrell doing laundry, they're probably be like, what the heck? Like, you're supposed to be doing laundry, you're supposed to be doing all of this. And it's just, being honest and kind of getting over that pressure of what a good quote unquote African wife should be.
Right.
So I think that's been an adjustment for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and not just in being a good African wife, of what the world thinks a good wife should be, and understanding that that term or that definition is unique to each relationship,
Right.
and what you and your husband have agreed upon. And I think so often people come in with that preconceived thought or notion of what it should be,
Right.
instead of having that conversation with their mate and figuring out what it is for the two of them.
Right. I think that's a great point. That's absolutely a great point. And what do you all think about the pressures of around holidays and Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter and even just random barbecues? Whose house are we going to go over this weekend? And is it fair for some couples to say, well, I'm going to go over my family's house and you can go over your friend's house
That's
or
a
whatever?
good point. Is it fair for couples? Because I know a lot of couples who do this, who say, well, I'm spending Christmas with my parents, you're spending Christmas with your parents, or whatever. Like, I don't know. For me, I always feel like it should be a family unit. But
Right.
what are your thoughts?
I think why this situation is a bit complex for us is we live next to no family.
Right.
So wherever you want to go, at least, but you have to drive. It's a 7-hour drive either way.
Okay.
So I think for us is, and Terrell, you can step in and help here. My understanding is Thanksgiving is a big deal for the Turner household. Just growing up based on what Terrell told me. So
Okay.
like last year we spent Thanksgiving with his family. And then for Christmas is a big deal for my family. I mean,
Okay.
last Christmas we decided to stay in Cincinnati just because of everything we had going on. But I think there needs to be some sort of balance. To be honest, I'm still figuring that out. Because a lot of times, like my dad, who goes back and forth between Nigeria, there are times where I've been like, hey, Terrell, I want to spend, I brought it up, I want to spend Christmas in Nigeria, or I want to go see, my extended family in Kenya. It's just whatever trips we take to go see family requires some sort of financial,
Right.
planning. Like we can't just get up and go, they're not down the street. So I think that makes
Right.
it a bit more difficult for us. And I'll be honest, I don't know that we have that figured out yet, Terrell.
No, I would agree. I think we're still trying to figure that out. I mean, I think on the front end, you have that pressure of you don't want your spouse to feel like their family to feel like that person has just left their family high and dry. So you want them to be able to spend time with their family, and then at the same time, you don't want your family to feel that way about you, to where you say, you know what, I'm gonna go spend time with her family, so now my family feels left out, or the other way around. So I mean, I think that there is the pressure from that end of, I do want my parents to feel like, that they have taken a new daughter into the family, just as much as I want her family to feel like they've taken on a new son into the family. So I think that pressure, I mean, I think to the individual people, it will be a challenge no matter what, of trying to figure out, which holiday is more important to either family. Now, for Lola and I, that's been a little easier because in Africa, they don't really celebrate Thanksgiving. It's more of an American holiday. So we kind of fixed it in our mind, hey, Thanksgiving we can do with my family.
Okay.
And then Christmas is something that they celebrate. So Christmas we can do with her family. Now, that's been on the domestic level. Now, if she wants to go international, like I said, that's a bit more of a cost involved, more timing required. So, I mean, I think there are more moving pieces to try to work out if you want to do it to that level.
And I could even say for us, we still in that trying to figure it out. And right now we leave it up. I want to say this: we leave it up to our parents. If they're doing something for a holiday, if one family's doing something big and another one's like, well, we're gonna do something big for Christmas, then we'll kind of go with that. But the biggest part is the cost that's involved. Are we gonna fly? Are we gonna drive? And it's always a cost when you're in a city and no family is around. That you have to consider as well.
And I think that's a great segue into our next topic of things they don't tell you, which is the commingling of finances between the couples.
Yes. The commingling of finances, and that when you get married, that's when you really see that open door. I know how much you make. I see you spending or using that card or spending the cash, and I would not have paid that for that item. So what are you doing with the rest of your money?
And then even going back to when do you have that conversation? I think it's very rare that before marriage, people have a conversation of saying, when we get married, this is how our finance is going to go. I think that conversation is not had, probably not much at all.
Right.
It's kind of like you get married, you get into it, and it's one of those things where Chris says, where I don't think you should have spent the money this way, or why did you go out and purchase X, Y, and Z? And I think after you have enough of those arguments, it's like, okay, we need to sit down and talk about this.
Yes, yes.
How are we going to approach this, and how are we going to make a plan for our finances?
Okay, so let me throw out this question, and then we'll get a little deeper. If you would have had that conversation with your spouse or with me beforehand, and you saw something that you didn't like, would you consider that a deal breaker, or more of a, this is going to be a big hurdle to work through together?
I don't think it would have been a deal breaker. It would have been a big hurdle to work through. Now, what are we talking about? Just how you spend money? Or if I get with you and I find out your credit score is 300, that might be a deal breaker for me.
Okay, understand.
Like, I'm being honest,
Okay.
you know? So it just depends on how severe it is. Or if you have 200 grand of student debt, is that something I want to take on? Because when we're married, that's no longer, your
debt.
debt. That's
Right.
our debt.
Right.
So yeah, that may be a deal breaker, and I think that's something people should talk about
Right.
before you walk down the aisle.
And it's very private and personal as well. Like, I would expect that you're close to being down the aisle if you're going to have that decision, because
Right.
I know people who have the 3-figure student loan debts or 6-figure student loan debts, and they don't want to tell anyone about it. And then when they have it, it's very much like, I have a secret to
If we're personal
tell.
enough to have intercourse, we're personal enough to discuss this debt.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, then. Get your money in order.
I'm just saying.
She didn't change the game. I can't afford to have this conversation.
I'm 100% in agreement with Nisha's statement. I think it's something that needs to be talked about. I think the fortunate thing, like for Terrell and I, we went through that when we did premarital counseling, and we had talked about that before. So even if you're not, attending a church, I would recommend that you have some sort, even if it's talking to, well, I don't know if you feel comfortable talking to your parents, but just someone that is a couple of steps ahead of you that can kind of help mediate that conversation, or even if it's between you guys, and just say, hey, be transparent and say, this is what I have. This is what you're walking into. The other person says what they have, so you know what you're walking into. And then from there, like Nisha said, it might not always be a deal breaker, but I need to understand
What I'm
I mean,
getting into.
do you have $200,000 in debt and we need to put this wedding on hold, or we need to do, a smaller wedding
Yes.
so we don't go into more debt? I think those are conversations that need to be had. And I think with Terrell and I, we're fortunate to talk about that before. It doesn't eliminate the friction that comes with it, because I think you still go through the process of adjusting,
Right.
because you're so used to, I'm an independent woman, I've worked hard, I make my own money. You spend all your money without really having to answer someone,
Right.
you make your own budget, and you feel like you're doing well. Then someone else comes into the picture and it's like, well, I don't know that I feel comfortable spending that much money on XYZ.
Right.
And you have to kind of work through that. So I think there's still bound to be some friction, but it's the right type of friction.
Yes.
Yes.
If that's, you're not having a conversation about, well, how do you owe $300,000 in debt?
Right,
Right.
right. And 2 questions I want to ask. First question is, do you all have a spending limit that your spouse must contact you
Like
before
anything
they
over
spend?
this threshold.
Anything, if you get to this point in the register and it says this, you need to be calling me.
I think I would say groceries. I don't think we have a limit. It's just groceries. But I think like usually when there's a purchase I'm buying that's over $100, I'll text him and be like, hey, I'm buying this, or I'll call him and say, hey, what do you think? This is what I'm getting.
Okay.
So I think our limit. Terrell, you can add to this. Terrell doesn't spend money often.
Okay.
So it's usually me. It's usually me calling and saying, "Hey, I saw this dress I really like. It's $120. It's in the budget, because we already do a budget.
Okay,
It's in the
okay.
budget, but I'm gonna go ahead and purchase this dress."
Oh, that's so nice.
So
If it's in the budget, I'll come home and say, honey, guess what I did today?
Right.
It's
She
the
talk
it's the
about me
after the
afterwards.
fact. so this is the thing I think like with the budget is, and I can think this is also the whole commingling finances is you have to get used to that is, Terrell is, yes, this is the budget, but if you can go under the budget, I'm perfectly fine with it. So if you don't have to buy it, we're not spending the money regardless of the budget. So that's something I have to kind of.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
I understand.
Justin.
I think that part was, like I said, it was a big challenge. Just not only just, okay, what are your numbers? Where are you spending your money? Well, also, what's the mentality that's behind how you handle your money? And I think for us, we were fortunate that when we started dating, neither of us had an enormous amount of debt. I mean, so it wasn't like we had any like, I guess you would say, huge deal breakers.
Right.
But I think where the friction came in is where I'm one that I didn't really spend a whole lot of money, or she would, when we go out or whatever, I was able to, pay for all the dates that we went on and stuff like that, to where, where it was fine when we were dating, and she saw that and she was like, this is great. But what she didn't see on the background was when it was just me, just in my everyday life, I just didn't spend a lot of money. So I had more money to spend on dates. So then when we get married and she's like, well, you were covering all the dates, and then she wants to buy all this other stuff. And I'm just like, well, the reason why I was able to cover all the dates because I wasn't buying that other stuff. So it's just like that stuff behind the scenes that you don't see. Like I sacrifice over here so that I can have the money to do all this stuff over here, whereas we can't have both.
Right.
And I think just working through trying to figure that out, and even for her, just her perspective of, she didn't go out and do really big purchases because she liked to buy small stuff very frequently.
Okay.
So it's just trying to understand that difference in mentality.
I would say this: once I got a good picture of our finances, in terms of doing commingling our finances, we're finally on one bank account, or a few small bank accounts, but a few big bank accounts. Let me say that. But then when I'm in the store and I see those big items like that new 65-inch flat screen curved TV, I'm like, that's not a nice TV, but I don't really want to buy it. I literally don't want to buy it because I would rather save the money and buy an investment or go on an international trip than me to have that one TV, because in the next year that TV will be outdated or, for other reasons. But when you finally get a good grasp of your finances, you start to make hopefully better decisions about the future financial goals of your family. And then those huge purchases where you would have just blew the money, you then say, I don't really need that. I don't really want that as well. So one last question, then we'll go to the other thing. Are you all on one bank account, 3 bank accounts, separate bank accounts, and one joint account? Have you all had that discussion? That was difficult for us, is which why I'm bringing it up.
So we have, pretty much what we did is we kept all the bank accounts we had when we were single, and which was an exercise, is we went to each bank account and just added each other to the accounts. So we both have, we didn't consolidate bank accounts. We kept same accounts. I added her name on all the accounts that I had. She has a password to access it, to get into it. She added me to her bank account. Now, it did take a little bit longer for her to add me to her bank account.
Look, that's a woman thing.
Look here. It was a convenience thing. It really wasn't, but I didn't trust you, baby.
I do remember, when we went to Miami to the Word's wedding.
Yeah, I was in Miami.
That was like just after we had gotten engaged, where we were going around the banks adding her to my accounts. I got added to her account after we got married. So.
Because there was no Chase. Was there a Chase? There wasn't Chase, but we had to wait in line. So we just did the Bank of America.
See how she rationalized that at the end of the day?
I love the rationalization.
I told him, like, look, I'm moving to Mexico. We need to go ahead and do this. Let's do it now. Add all those accounts.
Okay.
That's a great strategy, though.
What's that? Just add each other to the other bank
We
account?
didn't get that far.
No, we're slowly on.
I'm still waiting on my access. Thank you very much, sir. Okay. Next topic.
Next topic. Should have brought that one up. So 2 more topics. The next one on the list is relationships with friends and family, because we all have those. When you were single, that was my ace. Whether it was a female, male, that was my ace. And we spoke all the time. We hung out all the time. We traveled together. And then when you meet your significant other, that person then gets moved from their ace position to the beta position. And now you have a new ace. And that relationship could then change. Let's talk about that. Like, that's one thing that I would say. People mentioned it. And you may have known that, this is going to be hard, but did you really feel like you knew it was going to be that difficult? Even with family members, it was difficult. Have you all experienced that?
I would say no, I didn't know it was gonna be that difficult. And I'll just say, and I'm sure you guys have the same kind of struggle. Is Terrell and I, you only have so much number of hours in your day, right? 24 hours a day, you sleep 6 hours. We work about 9 to 10 hours a day. You come home. Terrell and I have actually had arguments about this, to where I'll come home and I'm on the phone with one of my friends, and he's like, okay, it's 7 o'clock. You work till 7. You're coming home. It's 7:30. You're gonna be on the phone for another 30 minutes. You're gonna get off the phone at 8 o'clock. You're gonna make dinner. You're gonna shower, and then in 30 minutes you're gonna be like, I'm tired. I want to go to bed.
Right.
Where's the time where we actually spend time together?
Right.
And so I think that dynamics is just understanding. You have to it's almost like you have to prioritize or kind of manage your marriage around everything else, to where it's almost like, so I know now when I'm coming home and I'm on the phone with someone, I tell my girlfriends, I'm like, hey, I'm about to walk through the door, I need to go, so we'll catch up tomorrow when I'm driving, or on the way home, to where it's like when I walk through the doors, that time has been given to Terrell, to where we only know we have 2 to 3 hours to spend together. And I really feel like that wasn't something that somebody told me. I mean, because I was telling Terrell, I was like, I feel like when we first got married, maybe the first month or two, I told him, I was like, I don't feel like I really talk to my friends that often. I don't feel like I have the opportunity to kind of develop those relationships, because when I was single, I'll be on the phone 2-3 hours, I'm doing everything else, and I'm talking to you. But now it's like I have somebody else in the house, so I can't spend 2-3 hours on the phone when he's home and he kind of feels ignored, and I'm kind of on my own talking to my friends. So I think that's kind of a dynamic, a change in dynamics, to where you have to, your marriage is your priority almost in a sense, and then everything else that happens kind of has to be tailored to match and fit that.
Do you feel like you've lost any friends because of that, or?
No, I think that my friends are pretty understanding. I think there have been some friends who, maybe we don't talk as much anymore, and that's fine. But I think most of my friends have said, hey, I understand. Even the ones that are single is, hey, I understand. Do what you have to do. We'll catch up later. Because, people understand. And I think this happened even when I was single, is life happens. I'm not always going to spend 2 hours a day talking to you. And, if you have a problem with that, then I don't know, because spending 2 hours on the phone there's so much more that you can do that actually adds value versus having a 2-hour conversation every other day. So I think there have been some friends who have kind of fallen to the wayside as a result of that, but for the most part, most of my friends do understand that, and just take it from there.
Any thoughts on that?
I have a couple of thoughts on that. Yes.
Okay.
Well, as far as friends, I can't say that friends have been an adjustment. Well, I guess I can. Let me backtrack. When we first got married, I did have friends that we talked to all the time, even when we were first dating. And I feel like the longer me and Chris were together, and eventually when we got married, and since that time, that conversation is very limited. When I'm driving, I'm probably talking to Chris. When I get home, I'm probably talking to Chris. As we're now, Chris is my best friend, and I am his in a lot of ways. So, I don't know if I really have that issue anymore, but I would say it's definitely been a change to the dynamics of my friendship. And I've also, like you were saying, adapted more married friends now that I can confide and talk to. And I've realized that my friends that I had kind of let fall by the wayside because they were married and I was single, we're now reconnecting and rekindling because we have so much in common now that we can talk to. And I just, as a single woman at that time, did not understand, which makes so much more sense now. So my dynamics and my group of friends has definitely evolved.
Okay. So let's go to the next one. We'll say, I'm gonna intro this one really nice. So there are a lot of movies that talk about marriage. You have a lot of the rom-coms. You have a lot of the books about relationships, and whoever reads them, men or women, but it leads you to believe that intimacy in a relationship is this way. Like, oh, they shut the door and they had the whipped cream and strawberries, and they were in there all night. Yeah, sex. And it leads a single person to believe, even the music, to believe that intimacy or sex is just this one night extravaganza, and then you just wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning like, what happened? Let's talk about that. Is that true? Question number one.
I believe that It is true.
Yes.
However, it is not everyday true.
Tell them the truth.
That is all I'm
yes.
saying. It does happen. It can be the fireworks, the height of the movie, the climax. It could be all that. But it's not Monday through Friday every day, you know? So that's my take on it.
So I'm going to put myself on the line.
Oh, here
I'm
we
bold
go.
enough to put myself on the line.
Oh, you're going to be bold now.
Yes. One thing you said to me before was, I thought men would just want it all the time, every day. It's just offered to you, and you just jump on it. I'm saying that to say there are some moments as a man where I'm like, I'm sleepy.
Let's talk about that. Yes, let's talk about that. So I thought that as a man, men, you know, the perception is that you guys want it all the time.
Yes.
Whenever they can, get some. If you're offering it, they want it.
Yes.
Ladies, that is not the case.
It is not the case.
And
Same page.
on a psychological stance, I had to deal with a lot because sometimes it made me feel like, what is wrong? Why
Right.
does my husband not desire me?
Right.
What is wrong with him? Men always want this. When you're tired, you should never be tired for this. And that was a hard point for me to realize that at the end of the day, my husband's still human. He still gets tired. He still wants to choose sleep over that sometimes.
In that one moment,
You know?
shout out to taking a nap.
Yes. But that was something that I definitely had a misconception about, and I had to learn. Just as there are moments where I'm like, nah, I'm not feeling it today. As a woman, it's so easy for us to say that, and we think that the men should automatically understand. On the flip side, we believe that they should never tell us that. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the thing out there. Like, we can say that to you, but you should never be able to say that to us.
Yes.
And realizing that it goes both ways.
Yes.
That was a hard lesson for me to learn, but I'm there now.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, also that the I guess you'd say the extravagant event is not an everyday thing, but when you do have an extravagant event, I mean, when you're watching the movies, it just seems like it just happens spontaneous. And just ignoring the reality that, you know what, there is some prep work to it. Because, like, even, I mean, and I'll say this even for myself, which I thought it was hilarious to where, you know, where in the movies you see where this extravagant event happens and it just so happens the whipped cream is
On
in
the
the
side of the
refrigerator.
bed or in
and
the
it's
fridge,
just like,
yes.
and to myself, you know, I'm thinking to myself, like, you know, I'm a little lactose intolerant. I don't even keep whipped cream on the regular. So I'm just like, you gotta actually, you gotta actually go to the store and buy it, to be prepared. Right. You gotta be prepared for moments like this. And I think even to, like I said, although it doesn't happen every night or whatever, is that it can happen occasionally. And if it is going to happen, there's some prep work that you need to do beforehand so that you'll have the stuff there. Because if you're expecting it just to be there, or like, for example, when in the movies where music is always playing in the background, the reality is if you don't cut the music on, it's not coming.
And you have to step away to cut that.
And if you don't put your phone on silent, if you're using your phone, you will get interruptions in the middle. So, you know, there's a lot of things to take into account.
And the
that whipped cream is
strawberries
sticky.
are always nice and cut and fresh. And you're like, somebody got to pull that green part off and cut them and plan for this thing. See, we all watch 50 Shades of Grey and think, you just walk in that room and it just all goes down. But somebody had to get that room together. Yeah. Good topic. I'm glad everyone was proud enough to speak on that. So we're getting close to the end of our episode, but I do want to just have some quick thoughts about Cape Town. What do you all think about Cape Town?
It's beautiful.
It really is.
Yeah, I think that it is beautiful. The views are amazing here in Cape Town. And yesterday we actually got a chance to go to the actual downtown, to where you can see a little bit more the industrial, I guess you would say the modern side of Cape Town. Because we're staying on the side of the mountain, which there aren't a lot of downtown businesses here. Mm-hmm. I would say that aspect is beautiful. It has been very interesting driving around, because when you think about being in South Africa, I think that I'm going to see a lot of Black Africans here. sometimes I forget that I'm in Africa with just the sense of diversity that I'm seeing with, all the people and all the different complexions. And I see people who look
Languages.
like, they may be Latin American, some that look like they may be Indian, some that looks like, they may be, Caucasian, or, I mean, it's just such a variety here that I will say that was very surprising being in Cape Town.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and another thing I would say is just, I think it's really beautiful, like Terrell said. It kind of gives me more of that whole relaxed sense. Like, I don't feel as rushed. Like when we were in Joburg.
Right.
I do feel like Joburg is kind of more hype. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel Cape Town is like kind of where you come, if you want to retire, you want to be more relaxed and just take life as it is, which I guess comes with the whole beach town or beach city thing. So I really like it. I'm looking forward to kind of going out and experiencing more and kind of mingling with people and, hopefully get to see some nightlife. So looking forward to that.
Yes. All right. So just to do a quick wrap up, there are a lot of things about marriage that you may hear about in passing. There are a lot of things that you will learn when you get married. But the topic of this episode is things that they don't tell you. And we spoke about just the intense adjustment period for marriages when there's chores, when there's just inviting or having that person now in your space every day for 24 hours. We talked about the pressure of being a wife and being a husband or just a spouse. We talked about the dynamics changing between friends and family, the expectations around intimacy, and just the challenge of commingling finances. So there are a lot of things, and there are many more to this topic, but I would like to say we've reached the end of our whatever episode this in, but we're at the end. We're going to go and explore Cape Town some more, maybe Tabletop Mountain, and do some driving around on the other side of the car and the other side of the road and try not to get into an accident. But tell people where they can reach you.
You can reach us at Bella Negra or at Around the World Cooking on Instagram, and you can also reach us at the TNL Turner Group on Facebook. That's our tax and financial services. But it's been great. Thank you guys for having us here.
Absolutely.
Privileged to be on the Word Podcast. Come on now. Big deal.
And as always, you can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Castbox.
At live.laugh.word.
Yes, live.laugh.word. And if you have any questions, comments on any topic or future topic discussion,
please email us at live.laugh.word@gmail.com.
All right, until next time.
We'll talk to you then.
Catch you on the streets.
Bye.
White.